Hello and welcome again to another episode of One Starfish, where our mission is to help change the world one person or one starfish at a time. As always, guys, make sure to rate, review, subscribe, share. That's how we get the word out about what we do. I'm really excited for our guest today. I just met Judy. She's in, I believe, Kansas or Missouri. You get those two. Kansas, okay. And she's got an incredible story. So I'm excited to get into this with you guys. I didn't want to ruin it when we were chatting before, so I'm excited to get into it with you guys. So welcome to the show, Judy.
Thank you, Angela. I love being here. I'm glad that I get to surprise you as well as the audience and the viewers.
Yes.
And I am from Kansas City, Missouri.
Hey,
And
that's why I was getting the Kansas and Missouri mixed up.
yeah, well, it's just right next to each other,
Yeah.
so that's fine. Kansas is just really flat.
It is true.
Yeah, so yeah, it's great to be here. I love the name of your show. That's awesome. I love the One Starfish podcast.
Well, and you were a one starfish, and now you're out there changing one starfish at a time. So I'm just excited. Let's get into things. So Judy has a book. It's called, let me get this, I wrote it down. When the Light Finds Us. When the Light Finds Us. So the information will be in the show notes, guys. I think it's a book. It sounds like a book that's going to be absolutely incredible to read. And so definitely check it out. But she started this book to help lifers have life after prison, basically, kind of concept, right? And she's a big advocate of judicial justice. And yeah, I'm just excited to get into this. So what got you on this path, Judy?
Okay, well, so I was sentenced to life without parole for 50 years for a murder I did not commit. My co-defendant committed it, and he was acquitted.
Wow.
So whenever this occurred, I had already been a battered woman for 12 years to my first husband, and I had been divorced about probably about 9 months when I met my co-defendant, and we had 2 children, my ex-husband and I. So I was very what would you say, very mentally conditioned and wired in a certain way that most battered women are, not having much confidence in themselves, always having this daydream of wanting a certain lifestyle with a home, a white picket fence, and all the things that little girls dream of. And I already had the 2 children, so I had a son and a daughter. The murder happened in July. I met my co-defendant in April, and I was in psychiatric ward that following September and October, and I was divorced in June. So June, September, October, February, I bought a business, moved out to where my parents were and my family, and met my co-defendant in April. He moved in June. Unbeknownst to me, one day when I came home from my business, there he was with these suitcases. And he was a very suave and debonair gentleman, wore a 3-piece suit, had been in the ministry, was a real estate broker. And he was very calm, and I would have never, ever thought, even for a second, that he had this dark side to him that I was totally unaware of, that my family was totally unaware of. But the murder happened. He took me to Alaska. I'm going to give you a quick version because there's a lot in the book about my story.
Yeah.
And took me to Alaska in July, where he took all my ways to communicate with my family away from me. And so I assumed in my mind that he would just end up killing me because I knew too much about everything. And so I attempted suicide there because I thought, well, if I'm waiting around for him to kill me, I just want to end this here. I can't keep going on like this and living, not knowing how my children were, because I was very, very close to them.
So it takes you to Alaska, murders someone basically, and then takes all your at the same time taking away all devices of wow.
Yeah, communication.
Wow.
Yeah, all my IDs, everything. And so I ended up attempting suicide there. And he was irate because it drew, he was afraid it would draw attention to us.
Right.
So checks me out of the hospital where I was life flighted to, and he ends up choking me until he has to go buy turtlenecks for me to be able to go out in public
Oh
because
gosh.
the bruises on my neck. But um, December 31st, we were arrested, and that was a joyous day for me. I know it might sound like crazy, but
Safety.
yeah, but I felt safe, you
Yeah.
know, I felt safe. I was thinking, okay, this is finally going to come to an end, and I'm going to see my family, I'm going to see my children. And so we
I'm
were,
gonna live.
yeah, yeah, I'm going to live. I get to breathe safely now.
Right.
And so we ended up back in Missouri on New Year's Eve, and we ended up having one attorney representing both of us. And hindsight, Angela, is that this was his way of knowing what my strategy was going to be for my defense. I did not know that. I thought he was just loving and caring and going to comfort me through our strategy and through what we were going to put on, in the courtroom.
Yeah, you kind of stand together and you would kind of like not throw him under the bus. And obviously there was nothing. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. That's what it was. And I had never had therapy for my for domestic violence or anything like that. So I really didn't know that there was help out there back in those days in the early
Oh
80s.
yeah, and it was a lot less, I would think, back then.
Yeah, and the authorities didn't get involved either. I
Oh,
called them and they would just tell him to leave and cool off. So women didn't have any help back then.
oh,
Um, but so needless to say, my defense was no defense because I couldn't take the stand. My attorney wouldn't allow me to take the stand and tell the truth. He tried to convince me to
of
come up
course,
with
because he's
an
probably
alibi.
paid off by like the other
Yeah,
dude.
yeah, yeah. And I would not come up with an alibi testimony, and he wanted me to say that I was shopping with my mother, and I would not do that. I'm the oldest of 8 kids, and I was very close to my mother. We were a very close-knit family. And so I refused to do that. He said, then you can't take the stand in your behalf because you're going to hurt your co-defendant with the truth. So, but unbeknownst to me, I did not know he was seeing two other criminal attorneys on the side. And when I got convicted to life without parole for 50 years, he fired that attorney and hired the other two attorneys, and he was acquitted. And the sentence, we were charged with capital murder. And that sentence carries either the sentence I received or the death penalty. So the jury, after you're convicted, then they have to go back out and decide your fate.
Right.
And so if I had received the death penalty, the scary thing is I would have been executed after I'd done 18 to 20 years. So I wouldn't even be sitting here talking to you right now. But I ended up spending more time in prison than I did in the free world at that time. And but I'll tell you, Angela, whenever I was so angry, of course, I don't know who would not be
Oh my
just,
gosh, I can't even imagine the feelings you like.
yes, it was devastating because no one in my family had ever been even affiliated with the law in any
And here
capacity.
you're like, wow.
Yeah, and it was all foreign to me and to us and to my mother and my father and my stepfather and siblings. And so I ended up going to prison. He puts a contract out on me while I'm in prison. So as soon as I get there, because he's getting ready to go to trial and he's afraid I'm going to go back and testify against him. So, and not only that, his attorneys and him also pay for four other offenders to go back and testify for him, which I found out years later. And two of them gave me affidavits to that effect. And so they put in the affidavit that they were supposed to testify for him and tell the jury that I said confessed to them that I did it, that he had nothing to do with it. And they were going to go back and testify. They were taken back to the jail to testify. But the prosecutor ended up not using them. They were only going to use them, his attorneys, if I took the stand, so they could just discredit everything I said.
Right.
But so I was devastated there, because that was my one shot of getting out of this. Is I was ready to tell the truth. I wanted to tell the truth. Excuse me. I wanted to take the stand, and the prosecutor was going to allow me to do that, had they not had these other 4 defendants or offenders come back for him. But before he did that, he put the contract out on me, and I had to end up fighting for my life. And of course, I survived, or I wouldn't be here. So there was a couple contracts that was put out that's in the book that I hope the readers will get a
Yes.
copy of when the light finds
I'm sure if
us.
you're listening to this, I'm sure you're like, I want to read this.
Yes. And of course, prison is a very foreign country. It's like somebody just drops you into this place. It's very dark and very depressing and very cruel. And their language is different. Their laws, their procedures, their rules are different than what they are in society. So you don't know what you're walking into. You don't know. And in Missouri, they did away with all the mental health hospitals. So that's where they send mental health patients also.
Right.
So you're dealing with all kinds of personalities. You don't know what they've been diagnosed as. So it can be a very dangerous
And I bet
situation.
you were this cute little blonde girl, because that's what you are now.
Oh,
And thinking back how many years this was, you were young
yeah.
and super young. And then, wow, like, how did you survive, the first, especially the first like few months of like craziness?
You know what, Angela? It's amazing, but one thing that let me one thing that helped me was him putting that contract out on me.
Oh,
And I'll
interesting.
tell you why, because I found out about it through another offender. So I already had a heads up that she did not know that I knew.
She was on it.
So
Yeah.
I was able to set it up to where I got her alone in the bathroom, and I had another offender holding bust, they call it, standing at the door, not letting anybody in. And the language there is a lot different too. And the
I'm
jargon,
sure.
everything is like, when I first went, I was like, what does that mean? What did you say? But
Oh,
um, so I was in there with her alone, and I just asked her, I said, my ex-husband that used to beat me, he taught me how to fight. So that's one gift that he gave me. He didn't know he was giving me when he
my
did it.
God.
Yeah. And so her and I sat down on a bench that was a long bench in front of our shower curtains. And I just drew my hand back and I said, Pam, I said, I have one thing to ask you. And whenever I did that, when my hands came apart, I knew the punch was coming next. And so I just hit her as hard as I could, and she fell backwards on the bench, and I kicked her, and she flopped over, and then she come up with a shank out of her bra, because she was known for carrying a shank. And so I did what I had to do to save my life, but that sent a message to general
Sure it
population.
did.
As nice and as polite and as smiley as I am all the time, because I love people, Angela,
You can tell that.
I'm not mean to people. I want to
No.
help
You're
people.
like you just remind me of like this Southern Belle. I know you're not Southern, but that's what you remind me of. Like yeah, you're like throwing tea parties and stuff. Like I just can't imagine you in prison.
I know.
If you listen to this, you don't see it, but definitely watch this on YouTube. This is like a
could.
sweet lady that I could never imagine in prison, especially like that. My gosh.
Right. I know. I know a lot of people, whenever I get ready to talk anywhere at any venues or churches or law schools, they always think, well, not at law schools because they know, But at other places, they think I'm going to get up and talk about a medical miracle. So, because they just can't, they're looking for tattoos and all this other stuff,
Yeah.
and
You don't have
I,
any tattoos. Did you get out of there without tattoos? I hear that's
I did.
wow,
I did.
amazing.
Not that I'm against them or anything.
No, but that's a big
They,
thing in prison. I was just listening to someone
yeah,
talking about prison, Damon West. I don't know if you know that name.
yeah,
And his days in prison, and yeah, just like it's just crazy.
yes, it is. And so that kind of helped set my foundation there. So everybody knew
You're a
what
badass.
I'm capable. Yeah, I'm what I'm capable of. I'm a badass if I
I
have to.
love that.
You know,
Yes.
don't put me in that position because just I'm total opposite of what you see if you back me into a corner.
She's feisty. I like it. So
Yeah.
let's fast forward as you go through. What got you like what did you do in 36 years in prison? Man, it's a long time. For crime you didn't even commit. This
Hmm.
is like crazy. Um,
Yeah.
what did you do to survive the days? Because can you have books? Could you read? Did you grow? What did you do to get through, you know, some of those like that's a lot of years.
Yeah, it is. And so, like I said, I was very, very angry, of course. And so I thought, okay, Judy, you've got to first figure out how this happened, how you missed so many red flags,
Hmm.
how you allowed yourself to
How
stay
did
in
I get here?
12 years. Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Because if I didn't figure out how I got there, I wasn't going to be able to change anything.
right.
And I was going to fight with everything I had in me to come home to my children and my family.
Wow.
And so I started with some therapy, which they didn't have a lot in Missouri for you, but then a battered women's group started. Dr. Lenore Walker, she is an expert in this field, and I didn't even realize I was a battered woman. I didn't know that term. I didn't know what
Wow.
the signs were to know or how to not be a battered woman. I was a caretaker. I wanted to please people. And so once I started figuring that out, I thought, okay, nobody cares that I'm angry. It doesn't, they don't care if I'm angry. I'm there to serve life without parole and die there.
Right.
So, but I thought, you know what? There's two things you can do with the anger, Angela. You can either get bitter or you can get better.
Right.
And I was not going to allow this situation to define me, nor was it going to define my future. And so I started my therapy. Then I understood how I became incarcerated. And from there, I thought, okay, my children are giving me hope right now, and I cannot let them down. I cannot fail them. I cannot let them think that their mother's never going to return to them or to my family. And so I kept in close touch with my daughter. She was 13 and my son was 3 when I left. And but we remained very close. I helped her through breakups. I helped her cook sweet potatoes over the phone, and we just had great conversations,
We're
and we
able to have some communication throughout all this at least. Okay.
yes,
That's good.
yes. And my family made sure that they came up to visit me all the time, and my family visited me all the time. I had good family support all
Did
through.
your family believe, I'm guessing they believed
Yes,
it was false. Wow.
yes,
That'd
yes.
have been hard. That'd been so hard
And
for your mom.
it was very, very, very hard because my mother and I were very close.
Yeah.
And there is a section in the book that talks about my mother and how I let her know before I went to Alaska every detail of what had happened because I had to tell my mother bye before I left. I did get to do that and let her know that I didn't think that I would ever be back and what to tell. I wrote a note to my children, and that was probably one of the most painful things I had to do. But I came back.
Because you
I
felt there was no other option. Like you were, I this makes me emotional. Like I've always had a thing for helping women. And I just, it's crazy when I think about it, how far it can take you when
yeah,
allow that I don't know what the word is, like that you just go down that rabbit trail and you think that's all you're
Yeah.
worth. And
Yeah, it is. I didn't, for one, I thought I was the ugliest thing that God ever created. I had no self-worth. I didn't, um, and my children were my lifesaver. They gave me a purpose to keep living. Even, when during the abuse and everything I did was for them. And then whenever my son was 5, my ex-husband would not allow him to come to see me anymore. So I didn't get to see him for 11 years.
parent alienation, I would really
Yeah,
been going through that.
yeah, yeah, it was. And, there's different kinds of addiction. There's drug addiction, alcohol. My addiction, I found out, was love. I wanted to be loved so bad because I had been sexually abused as a little girl by an assistant pastor and other people in my life. And so I had already had a lot of pain in my life before I ever got married. And, but whenever I went to prison, it was like something just turned over in me. And, um, I found my higher spirit. I found what created me. I got that in my soul, in my heart, and I knew I already had the courage and the strength and the resilience and whatever it took to fight this sentence and come home, no matter how long it took. I started my fight, and I started doing clemencies to governors, and I went through 6 governors. And other lifers, I helped them. I became a certified paralegal. I started taking college courses, and I looked at other women, and, they didn't know what it was like to be a mom. They didn't know what it was like to communicate with their kids. And so I thought, this is sad. It was heartbreaking. And so I started getting involved with programs to help mothers and their children communicate, to learn their love language, to have a bond, and know how to form a bond, and to break that generational curse of consistent incarceration in their families.
Right.
And so I stayed very busy doing that and creating other programs. I became a group and personal trainer. And because I wanted women to love who they were, because I
You
hadn't for
finally
so
had figured out the self-love,
yes,
the real
yes.
self-love, not like going
I
get pedicures and manicures, but real self-love.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly.
Wow.
And, so I wanted their bodies cleaned out of those chemicals and that negativity and that I'm no good and I hate who I am. I'm ugly, nobody's gonna want me. And so I thought, let's start with the outside where they can actually see a physical difference in their
Yeah.
body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mental health is huge. Mhm.
Yes, and it worked. So I was a actual certified trainer from AFA, Aerobics and Fitness Association of America, and I ran that program. Blast Better Living Awareness Support Team is what we called ourselves, and there other women became trainers. So we had exercise classes, yoga, Pilates, Zumba, everything from like 8 o'clock in the morning when the gym opened till 7 o'clock at night whenever it closed, 7 days a week. So we constantly had classes, and these women started feeling good about themselves.
Wow.
You know, they started wanting be the citizens that they were created to be, the good moms, the good, the self-love that they needed so badly.
Mm.
And so we started doing everything we could to keep them on that path. And a lot of them became trainers themselves, and that's what their profession is when they got out of prison. And so it gave them something to hold on to. And then I also worked on legislation while I was incarcerated. There was senators and representatives that came to the prison for the first time ever in the history of this occurring, and they listened to our stories of battered women, how they suffered, and then killed their abusers and ended up in prison.
Right.
So we were able to craft a bill with these senators and state representatives, and a battered women syndrome law was passed in Missouri that women could now use as a defense in the courts. And we did that all behind bars. So,
Wow, that's amazing.
yeah, yeah. So my incarceration ended up being the me finding my purpose.
It was a blessing.
Me,
Disguise.
yes, it was.
Big
It really,
disguise.
really was. Yeah, it was. So there's a term that we use in prison. Either you do the time or the time does you. And I chose to do the time, and it did not do me. I did my time the way I wanted to do it. And before I walked out of prison, I was given the nickname, which I did not know until a caseworker told me, that I was the governor. I said, "What?" I
Oh my
said, "What?"
gosh, I love it.
Even the warden, when I walked out, he shook my hand. He said, "Judy," he said, "we are so happy that this is happening for you. But we
How did
really."
that feel? Like, I really can't imagine. Obviously, and anyone listening to this that hasn't been in prison at all probably can't imagine. How did that feel when they actually released you?
Oh,
Like,
the governor himself came to the prison, and that's the first time that made history to have a governor come inside a prison.
and was it because
Every-
I'm sorry, I'm just digging in. This is so cool. Your
It's
story is amazing. We'll have to watch the time because this is incredible. I know I could go forever. What did they figure out the truth? Is that what got you released, or just
I filed.
behavior, you're doing your thing and they still considered you quote guilty? How did that, I'm just curious, did they actually figure out the truth after all of that?
Right. I had one attorney that stayed with me for 35 years. I met him the first time he came to see another offender. And I asked to visit with him, and he got so involved and believed in my case, he would not give it up.
Wow.
So, yeah. And he did it pro bono. And then I started with the law professor. We created a coalition for women of 12 lifers that we worked hard to get out of. We pulled in supporters, legislators, retired judges, um, anyone that wanted to support this group that would write letters, get petitions going, visit the governor's office in our behalf. And whenever attorneys go to school, they are not told how to do a clemency to the governor. It's not even mentioned. They haven't a clue.
Right.
So it's actually your last tool that you have after you lost all of your appeals. Is the governor has the power to release and pardon anyone that's ever committed a felony.
Interesting.
Yes. So I had roundtables with law students to educate them on how to put a clemency together. You had to be very transparent. You had to tell them everything, be as honest as you could, put everything in there. And so I did like outlines, and attorneys would ask me to call them about their client that's incarcerated to help them put a clemency together for their client. And so I was able to do that. I was able to see women that I had helped put their clemencies together walk free before I did, and it was bittersweet because I so badly wanted to go home to my family and my children. And but my day came, unbeknownst to me, that it would happen that day. I did not know I
You
had a
didn't even
clemency
know.
pending.
Okay.
No, I had a clemency pending, and the governor before this one that released me, he left office after 2 terms. And this governor that came to see me, it was his first year, as he hadn't been in office even a year, because he got in office in January. In December, he came to the prison to see me.
Wow.
And there was a little situation about that's in the book that people can read. But the governor before him left my clemency on his desk, boxes of papers and evidence and everything. It was like a piece of a puzzle that somebody had to take the time to sit down and actually look at that
Right.
cared, that really cared.
Mm.
Finding politicians that actually care about their constituents is hard because they usually care more about their political career
Right.
than what's right and wrong.
Hmm.
But this governor He cared more about even a little, and we are, we know that we are considered the lowest form of society,
Mhm.
offenders are. And for him to come into a prison and care about somebody as lowly as I was, that just, I was overwhelmed. I was just overwhelmed that somebody would care enough.
No kidding.
And he came to the prison that day, and I didn't know he was coming. I didn't know what was going on. I called my daughter all the
Usual day for you. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. I was getting ready to teach classes, and I was in the middle of getting a mammogram. Whenever, I mean, I had one in the machine, and
Oh my gosh, hilarious. Yeah.
and the officer came in and said, "Judy, you got to get to the visiting room. You have a visitor." I said, "No, it's not a visiting day, so I'm not going to the visiting room. You've got the wrong Henderson." And she said, "Judy, I'm serious. Right now, you have to go." I said, "I'm not going." And she said, "Okay, if you don't go, you're going to the hole." I said, "Okay, I'm going." So I said, "Get me dressed." I had to get dressed real quick and get up there. But still, I had to wait an hour after my strip search. And I sat there and waited and waited. And I said, "If my attorney's here to see me, uh, well, they're not here yet, evidently, because I don't see them anywhere. And I'm waiting for over an hour. So pretty soon they get a call, and I walk into the visiting room, and I saw the attorney for the governor that had been to see me 3 weeks earlier, but not promising me
Yeah.
anything, just asking questions.
Seeing, yeah, 35 years. Oh,
Yeah. And 36,
oh.
36. That 1 year makes a difference.
Yes, yes. But the guy was with you 35 years, right? The attorney? Or
Yes.
36.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right.
But it wasn't that attorney, it was the governor's attorney
Oh, okay.
that was standing there. And he said, "Judy, I just have one more question to ask you." Because I said, why are you here? And I thought, it's bad. It's really bad
Oh,
news. They've already made a decision, and he was polite enough to come and tell me.
right.
Um, but he said, "No," he said, "actually, there's somebody that's been waiting to meet you for a while now, and I want you to turn around." And I turned around, and there was the governor standing right almost on top of me, and I didn't even know it. And I just broke down in tears. I fell down to my knees, and
Knew it, man.
yeah, I knew, I
Wow.
knew it was that day. Yeah.
Wow. Man, what a story. Like I said, we could go forever. I am watching the time and we do need to wrap up because
Okay.
yeah, but guys, you can tell you definitely want this book and you definitely want to reach out to Judy. We'll have, like I said, all her stuff in the show notes for sure. But I always have three final questions and then anything we didn't touch on that you really want to get out. Like your story is incredible. Um,
Thank
man. And I can
you.
see why you want to help people the way you want to help people 100%, for
Yes.
sure. Um, so first and final question is if someone's looking for their purpose, what's one sentence you would say that could help them find it?
Don't miss the signs, because your higher power, whether that be God or the universe, whatever, they give you signs all the time. Take time to see what it is you are leading toward, or what your gut tells you that's drawing you into something. And but be careful and make sure that those feelings are positive, because nothing negative is, if you have any negative feelings about it, it's not right. It's not going to be good. That's not your purpose. Your purpose is always going to be positive.
Mm,
And the God that I serve, his promises are always yes and amen. He
man.
doesn't, yeah.
Yeah.
And I always stood on Jeremiah 29:11. Um, God knows your future. It's for good. And so believe that, because he created you for a reason. And I was fortunate enough to find my purpose. And don't
After
ever,
36 years, like I just
yeah,
want you guys to listen to this. Like your message becomes your message. Your test can become your testimony. And you
I
man,
just said that
yeah.
yesterday.
Yeah, and that's what you've done with your life. It's incredible.
Yes.
What you've gone through. And so many people, like you said earlier, I think when we were chatting, bitter or better. You decided
Yes.
to become better. And
And
second question,
people,
what's a
yeah.
favorite quote and why?
Oh, I guess I would have to say, Angela, that my favorite quote is be better, not bitter.
Perfect.
You know, be better. You have a choice to be better. So choose better because bitter doesn't hurt anyone but yourself.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Third and final question, what's one word or sentence you want on your gravestone?
Resilience.
Well, you've definitely shown that.
Yes.
So, awesome. You run into someone in the coffee shop, they listen to it. Hopefully they got the book, they've read it, stuff like that. What have we not touched on that you really want to leave? I know there's a lot of stuff you've got inside of you, but what's something you really want to leave our listeners with?
I want to leave everybody with the belief and knowing hope can be turned into whatever you want it to be. And hope is a great way to always believe it's going to get better. It's going to get better, but you've got to hope it that that's what you want. Find what you want. And you don't have to stay in a dark place. That's a choice. And don't be a victim, be a victor. Don't let anybody make you a victim.
I love that. Guys, I know you'll want to share this. Please share this with someone that you know that would value this. And if it's you and you want some help, reach out, for help. Obviously, if you have some questions, reach out to Judy. Like I said, we'll have all the links in the show notes. And if you are in those situations, there's help. Don't wait until you're in the
Yes.
worst case scenario, please.
And I do have a website they could go to if
Oh,
they would
awesome.
like. It's Judy Ann Henderson.com. And that's JudyAnnHenderson. That's how
Perfect.
it's spelled.
And that'll be in the show notes, guys, too, so you can click on it. Thank you so much for, being on, Judy. Guys, let's go out there. Let's change the world one person or one starfish at a time. If we can change one life at a time, together, we can change the world. Thank you so
Yes.
much.
Thank you, Angela.